Evening, Book War folks. We are just gonna wait for Miss Hattie to jump on. My light is not awesome tonight, but that is okay. That is okay. Just don't have the best lighting. Yep, here we go, Miss Hattie. Oh, it rang. Ah, there she is. You're in your kitchen again.
Yes. So we did laundry today,
Yeah.
and there's so much laundry on our rack and like sweaters laid out on the floor that I couldn't even get in my chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense then. No wonder you're in your kitchen.
So
But
new location today. Yeah.
that's fine. You did your kitchen for a while when the internet was being weird.
Yeah, I did because like for whatever reason, and then George got that new modem or extender or
Mm-hmm.
something that does internet, and that seemed to help that problem. But yes,
Oh,
I did do it in the
yeah,
kitchen for a while because like I could not get the video thing to work like worth a darn
yeah,
in the back room. But
yeah. Weird,
yeah,
weird. Um,
who knows?
I was saying my lighting is terrible tonight. I don't know. It's just awful,
Oh,
but like I just can't even care.
yeah.
So,
But did you
um,
get new glasses?
I
Because I feel
did.
like you have new glasses. I
Yes, they
love that.
are new. Yes, they have this, and I don't know if you can tell on here, but they're kind of like they're
Yeah,
brown.
they
So
look like
yeah,
brown up here and then like lighter
and
colored at the bottom.
then clear.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because the light is like I'm trying to keep my head down so I don't like
Yeah, so you don't
have
get weird.
hundred
Yeah, I
lights,
know.
but
Yeah.
that's all right.
Well, they look really good. I like
Thank
them.
you. I really like them too. They look really good when my hair. I just got my hair done, like
Yeah.
just re-dyed last week. But like when the brown starts coming out, the gray brown comes out. They look like
You're like, I
perfect.
might have done that on
So
purpose. Maybe.
baby.
Maybe.
Okay. So it's been a month. I
It's
think
been a while.
it was a short month. That's all I'm gonna say. It's
Always
crazy.
is.
It's been crazy. But we are talking about what we've read
Yep.
a little bit, as well as particularly our February read, which was classic romance,
Yep.
and how we felt about that.
Uh-huh.
So, do you want to go first? What did you pick?
I will go first. Hannah's gonna maybe pass out everybody, so like
Oh,
hang in there with us
okay.
because Hannah may just like
Okay.
fall over here. I read 3.
You didn't know such thing. 3 classic romance?
Yeah.
Okay. But like we were talking about between last time and us,
Yeah.
our classic romance, they were on classic romance lists, but they're not exactly what most people would think
That's true.
about. Are all 3 of yours like that, or do you have 3 that was actually like what people would think about as classic romance?
I don't know. I mean, I read A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. That was the first one that
Okay.
I read.
Yeah.
Okay, that was this kind of like great old like copy that I
Yeah,
have from
that's
the library.
amazing. I was
I
like, is
know.
that your copy? I'm
No,
like, you had the
this
copy of
this
that? That's
is a library
beautiful.
copy of this book. Is the public
That's
library has
incredible.
this like
Yeah.
really amazing
Yeah.
copy of A Room with a View. So that one's like pretty like standard
Mm.
fare for like classic romance stuff. And I'll talk about that one in a sec. And then this author, I'd never heard of this. Maybe you've heard of this person. I'd never heard of this person. And I adored. I will tell you all about this one. So this is Georgette Heyer.
Okay.
Um, and this is the first one that I read. I'm reading a second one of hers. It's the third one. This one's called The Grand Sophie.
Okay.
And I think she was right. I think I'm pretty sure Georgia Heyer lived in like the early to mid 20th century, right?
Okay.
But she was actually writing kind of like late Victorian era
Oh,
stories. Does that
oh,
make sense? So she was like
interesting.
a little bit later,
Yeah.
but she was writing stories from a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of a period earlier than her.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, I'm gonna go to those. I'll tell you why I love those so much in a minute, but I feel like I got to talk about A Room with a View first because
Okay.
it was the
Okay.
first one that I picked
Right. Yeah.
up, and I
Yeah.
read,
Yeah.
and I read it first. It's by Ian Forster, and the funny thing is, so Ian Forster is a man. For those who don't know
Mm-hmm.
that, and this was sort of like one of his kind of like seminal, sort of like most known for
Yeah.
works. Um, and this is what I'm going to say, and I don't know if this is really quite right, but this is how I perceived it. Is it
Okay.
definitely felt like this? the main character was a woman.
Okay.
And so it's like it's her sort of love story.
Okay.
But it definitely felt like it was written by a man.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? Like as you're going through, you're like, okay, okay, I guess like it was a different time period. Like the setting is like the mid 1800s, right?
Right.
Mid
Okay.
1800s. It starts in Europe, and then they go back to England for the second half of the book. She's like traveling, right? She's traveling
Okay.
in continental Europe, and then she goes back home
Mm-hmm.
to England. But there's sort of like no. This is what I'm gonna say. This is like such a weird thing to say about a book, but there was like no like romantic story between her and the person she ended up with at the end of the story. Like they were in maybe three scenes together throughout this entire book. Yeah, I know. It was so okay. I feel like I need to think about it like contextually as well, because like romance stories and like what that meant in the mid 1800s
Mm-hmm.
is a totally different thing than
True.
like what it means now, and like what that
Right.
could look like and what a proper romance looked like was very sort of very different.
Yeah.
But I'm not kidding. I was like, I'm literally trying to think
Weird.
if there were more than three scenes in this book.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a
That's
long book, but
not,
it's
no.
over
And if it's
200
a
pages.
romance, you would expect there to be more than 3 scenes with the two people who
Yeah.
get together at the
Yeah.
end. Unless it's like an anti-romance and they end up together, but they don't like each other.
No, but see, it's not that. That's the
That's
thing. Like,
not
if
that.
it was that, it would have made a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a lot of sort of like everybody around them
Mm-hmm.
doing the story part. And
Oh,
they are
interesting.
like in the story. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just like not at all what like any modern person
Right.
would
Would call a
think
romance.
of as like, I mean it totally is, because like the whole like end of the story is them getting together,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it is in that sense, but like the
Mm-hmm.
way it was written was very like mid,
Yeah.
1850s is like when it
Yeah. Yeah.
takes place, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when it was written basically. And you really feel it, and I really
Yeah.
felt like, okay, yeah, this is a man like writing it too, and not in like necessarily a bad way, but just in a way that's like, yep,
Right.
this is a man
Yep.
writing this, not
So
a
not
guy.
Jane
I don't know. I feel like,
Austen.
yeah, exactly. I was gonna say like Jane Austen was like writing at the same time. This is not Austen, like not even.
Right.
And there was nothing wrong with it. I'm actually like, I wasn't mad that I read it. I wasn't like, wow, this is a piece of trash. Like, I don't,
Mhm.
it wasn't like that. It was just so weird, right? Because like
Right.
the people who the story is their romance are just like
Right.
barely in the story.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It was very weird. It was very weird.
Interesting.
In
It's an
that sense, it
interesting
was good.
form for a
Yes,
romance. For a
exactly.
romance.
It was more like the form. That's a good way to actually talk about it, because it's not like the story was weird
Yeah.
or like creepy. It didn't like feel
Right.
like that at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Um, but you didn't get any like, I don't know, when we expect like a romance story, we expect like that relationship to like build.
Mhm.
You know?
Well, and here's my question. They're the protagonists,
Yeah.
but who is the story being told through their eyes, or is the story then being told through these other characters outside about these
Well,
two
I
people? Do you know what I
feel
mean?
like
Like,
it's like it's an extra narrator, I think. Like
okay,
someone
like it's
else is
a
like telling the
okay
story of all of these
people.
people and all of their interactions. I'm not sure. I'm terrible at like the language for literature, but
That'd be third person.
okay,
That's
yeah,
third person. Like,
okay,
there's literally a third person
yeah,
who's telling the story.
okay. That yes, that makes sense. Yes, okay. So
Yeah.
because yeah, it's another person, like this narrator
Yep.
sort of just like telling you
Hmm.
the story of
Yeah.
this particular sort of like group of people.
And so you usually have less like internal monologue in that sort of
Yeah,
story.
that's
Not
true. And
always,
there
but
wasn't much.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that
It's
makes
not
sense. Yeah,
always true anymore. People play with that too,
yeah.
but there's usually less. Yeah.
Yes, I would say that
Yeah.
that's an accurate description. That we don't get a ton of
Hmm.
like inner sort of monologuing
Yeah.
feelings and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it was just like just not what a modern person would like pick up to read
Hmm.
as like, oh, I
Romance.
just want like a feel good romance story. Like, no, this is like
No.
maybe this was a feel good romance story for people living in 1850 in England.
I mean,
Like
maybe.
that
Who
very
knows,
well
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
could yeah be
Hmm.
true. But now, not so much.
No.
Not so much.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
you
that's
don't really
funny.
get to know the main character. You don't get to know the guy at all. There's
Yeah.
just like there's no sort of like character development or relationship development. Um, throughout like
Yeah.
250 pages worth of
Yeah.
romance
This is so
story.
weird. It's
Yeah,
interesting. It's really
yeah.
interesting.
I feel
Now I'm
like
like
you
sort of
should read it just to see
intrigued.
what you would
I
say. Like if
know.
you would have, yeah, it's not a hard read at all. It's
Yeah.
only 250 pages. It's this tiny little thing,
Yeah.
right? It just because I would love to hear like how you
Yeah. I'm
read it
actually
or if
kind
it was
of
different for you.
intrigued. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have to read that one. I'm gonna have to get
yeah.
that one from the library
Get
because
it
I
from
don't
the
think I have
library.
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so tell us about the other ones that you were
Okay,
loving.
so these ones are also on that list. There's Georgia Hire. This is the one I read first. It's called The Grand Sophie. This book was hilarious.
Oh,
Hilarious. Oh my god.
love that.
So these are so and it was so funny that I picked up another one that was like on that the classic romance
Hmm.
list that was by
Hmm.
her as well. And I'm in the middle of reading that one. So in this one, The Grand
Uh-huh.
Sophie, this this young woman Sophie is the main character,
Hmm.
and her dad is a diplomat. So he goes,
Okay.
and this is taking place in England, like kind of Victorian
Yeah.
era as
Hmm.
the story is. So he goes off to like Argentina or something, and
Hmm.
she's like 20 years old, but she's single, and so she has to like
Hmm.
be taken care of,
Right.
because
Obviously. Right.
she can't leave her on her own. She's 20 years old, and she's a young
Right. She
woman
doesn't
who's not
know how
married.
to like put a foot in
I know,
front of the other.
I know.
So right. Hmm.
So she goes to her aunt's. So she
Okay.
goes to her aunt's in London, and her aunt has a bunch of kids. Some of them are like adult kids, and some of them are young kids. So, of course, like the little kids love
Right.
Sophie, right? Because
Love
she's
Sophie. Right.
quirky and she's weird and she doesn't play
Oh.
by the rules. She brings them a monkey. She brings them a monkey. That's just an example. Okay. Yeah, that's what of course they're gonna love her. The little kids are gonna adore her, right?
Who doesn't love a monkey?
I know, like so much fun. So anyway, so she basically comes into this household that's
Hmm.
like really like sort of like Dolesville, and like all these people are just sort of like boringly living their lives and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And she is just this catalyst that disrupts
The whole
everything.
system. Yeah.
She doesn't play by any of the rules, like at all.
Love it.
And she's just sort of like, but she's so likable
Yeah.
that like everybody sort of loves her.
Right.
Like her one cousin is the one who like she makes them nuts, which of course then ends up being her like love
Yeah.
interest at the end, right?
Right.
And their cousins, which is creepy for us, but it wasn't that weird. It
No.
was fine.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
No, no, no.
yeah. So anyway, but she comes in. I mean, like her antics are hilarious
That's
because they're
awesome.
always like with the best motivations possible, right? Like the
Yeah.
things that she's
Yeah.
doing, but defies every rule, makes everybody crazy.
Love it.
Like she literally like shoots one of her friends. She carries a gun. Okay, first off, the fact that she carries a gun is hilarious. And then she shoots one of her friends just to get this other girl to feel bad for him so that she'll fall in love with him because she knows that she already like likes them. And so it's all about these like machinations to like get people together,
Oh,
right?
oh my God.
It was ridiculous and hilarious and so funny, and she was so lovable,
That's
and
great.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so then I picked up
Hmm.
another one by
Yeah.
Georgette Heyer, which I'm in the middle of now,
Yeah.
which isn't quite as like funny, like the
Yeah.
because this girl was just so funny in this
Yeah.
book. This was not quite as funny, but it still has that like very lighthearted
Hmm.
feel to it, where like the main character lady is an
Yeah.
old maid at 30.
Right. Obviously.
You know,
Because I mean,
yeah, but she's also sort of defying the rules. She lives by her on her own
hmm,
in Bath, city of Bath, and she kind of like takes under her wing this like young girl,
hmm.
so then she gets all mixed up with that young girl's family because this is like a
Oh,
weird thing to be
right.
doing. And so then of course her love interest is one of the like curmudgeon-y uncles of this young girl.
Well, of course you love that. You love a good curmudgeon.
I love a good curmudgeon. I can't even help it. So anyway, so it's also really good. It's not. I don't feel like it's
Yeah.
quite as funny because like Sophie was just so like over the
Right.
top with
Right.
all of the like the social conventions. She just is just
Mm-hmm.
like it's like they
Yeah.
didn't even exist for her,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So she's just going about doing the things that she knows she needs to
Mm-hmm.
do, to make the world the way she wants it to be.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You got to do what you got
Yeah.
to do. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's hilarious.
So I actually had a lot of fun with that one, and then I picked up that was my second one, and then I picked up that third one
Yeah.
that I'm in the middle of right
Third
now.
one.
So I did
You're
pretty
going
well with
for it. Yeah.
my classic romance.
You did do very well with your classic romance. I did not read 3. I just read 1. Um,
See,
but
you
it
just
was,
never know what you're gonna get.
you never
We didn't think we'd get me to
know.
read one, and I'm on my third one.
It's so true. It's so true. Hattie had found a list of classic romance because we kind of wanted to go outside the box and read something that we hadn't actually read before. And on that list, last month for our book club, we read Begin Again, the writings of James Baldwin and the wisdom of them for today, something like that.
That was
And
not even
so,
close to the subtitle, but that's okay.
what was the subtitle? Do you remember it?
I don't know if I remember. Let me think. Okay, it's Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and his message for our own, or something like that.
Okay, that was much better. By the way, that was a much better subtitle as well. So anyway, but we read that, and I realized I've never actually, I haven't read a ton of James Baldwin. I've read
Go Tell It on the Mountain.
Go Tell It on the Mountain. Thank you. I was like, the mountain one. All I could think of was like the other side of the mountain. I'm like, that's not
You
it.
should probably know that one. It is like a song, kind of.
I know that. I was like, it's a song. It's the one that Dad likes.
I know, right?
Go Tell It on the Mountain. Anyway, so so on that list though was one of a James Baldwin, which was Giovanni's Room.
Yeah.
Giovanni's Room, which interestingly enough, I didn't realize it's also like a mystery.
Oh. I feel like I really want to read it now.
Yeah. Have you not read this one?
No, I haven't read Giovanni's Room. I read Fire Next Time, and I have Go Tell on the Mountain on my shelf. That's the one I picked up. I hadn't read that one yet.
Yeah. And I did listen to it. I listened to the audio version of it, and it was really well read. Yeah. Like it was really, really well read. But it's an American in France, in Paris in the 1950s. Yeah, 1950s Paris. And he is he's a member, or he is exploring his own sexuality and like kind of trying to figure all of that out. And he's a white American, and he has a fiance, sort of.
Oh, okay.
And she goes to Spain. But I don't think this is spoiling anything, because towards the beginning of the book, there's these allusions that Giovanni's in jail now.
Oh.
But like you don't know why.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole thing, really. Like it's like what
the heck's going on?
So
yeah.
The way that Baldwin, again, I do love playing with form. He does that, which this isn't quite as probably as unique as it probably was when he did this, but where he's really jumping through time in a really interesting way, and he's jumping back into the childhood of, I think his name's David. Yep, David. Okay. Childhood of David and his relationship to his father, and then jumping all the way to like present, which is when Giovanni's in jail. Then this whole story of him meeting Giovanni and like what that whole so it's really quite. I did not realize it was also a mystery.
Yeah,
I think of this as a mystery, and like one that actually didn't irritate me. Usually mysteries by the end, I'm just like, I don't care anymore who did it. Like I'm done.
I don't. Yeah.
Yep. Like you forced me to read that whole book to find out one thing. Many people love that. I don't care for it. It's not my thing. So. But so it was really great. I mean, it was good. It was really interesting. There is an introduction, I think. There's one on this one too, in the physical one. There's an introduction that's really talks about the power of this book and like what it was and how it fit into James Baldwin's life. And then having read Begin Again and some of the stuff that the gentleman who wrote that, what was his name?
Eddie S. Glaude Jr.
Thank you. That he talks about in terms of like what's what kept Baldwin healthy enough to be a critic of the American culture. Like it's really quite beautiful. It is a beautiful story. I mean, it's sad, but also like there's just an honesty in that as well, right? Which we don't always think about classic romances as being honest.
No.
And so I really like
we have
that
plenty
part.
of tragic romances, right? But I do feel like there's a difference between a tragic romance and an honest one.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think this one hits that really perfect note where it's both, it is tragic, but it really is an honest exploration of what is happening. So I highly recommend it. It's not a very long one either. It's really it's short. It's like 160 pages. So really, really fun to read. So I mean, fun is maybe not the right word, but
it's a good read.
Yeah, it was a great read. It was a great read. So definitely, I mean, there's nothing of James Baldwin that I've ever read that I've been like, I don't know.
It's always going to be worth it if it's been written by James Baldwin. Like there's not really, you're not going to pick it up and be like, oh, I guess I wasted my time on that. Like that's never going to.
That doesn't really, that's not really how it works.
Yeah. That's not the reality in which we live.
Work. So yeah, that was really good.
That's great.
Yep. Yeah.
Did you remember to check on our thing for next month?
I did.
I did
you?
We both did.
I have it written right here because I was like, I gotta write it down because I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for our next month, it is for March. For March, it is a book that we've read in childhood. Mm-hmm. 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 And I did write down 2 ideas. What have you thought about it?
Yeah, so George came up with one immediately. He's like, The Hobbit. I'm like, yeah, I do love The Hobbit.
You do.
But then I was thinking, because it feels like it's March, and I feel like I was thinking The Secret Garden.
Okay, I have it written down. I have it written down so you can see it. It was Mutant Message Down Under or The Secret Garden.
I forgot about Mutant Message Down Under. You really love that. That one didn't like resonate with me the way it did with you. I mean, I read it too, but like it just didn't like resonate with me as much. But.
It felt like I was thinking like, oh, that was just like one that was like so iconic. I mean, it wasn't quite childhood though, because I read it for the first time between high school and college, and it was like a transformative book for me. So then I was like, well, maybe The Secret Garden instead, because it was more like I read that as a kid.
I know.
And we loved that movie.
Secret Garden together. Let's do Secret Garden, and I'm probably gonna watch the movie too because I love it.
Love that
so much.
Movie. It's so good. I know. I'll watch it too because
it'll be fun.
We might have to like
talk about it like now as adults. You know, like actually talk about the story and like how it hits us now.
And maybe we'll watch it at the same time and we can text.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
While we're watching it. Because man, I love that. Anyway, sorry. I'm like, God, I love that movie so much. And he goes out on his like donkey horse thing, like the big pony out on the moors.
It's so good.
Anyway,
that's like one of those movies, like no remake is ever going to be like that movie. It's I don't know what it is about that movie, but it's just it's too perfect.
There's a perfect.
It's just exactly the way it's supposed to be.
Don't mess with it. Yeah.
It's so good.
I was going to just hit a couple of things as recommendations that I've just finished. If that's okay.
Yeah.
So one, if you've been following us at all, you've seen that I keep sharing this stuff about For the Wild book study.
Oh yeah.
And so the very first book that we read for that, and Hattie makes fun of me for, but it's fine. It's called We Will Rest. The Art of Escape by Tricia Hersey, who wrote Rest is Resistance and does the Nap Ministry. Yeah. If you follow the Nap Ministry on Instagram. And she does how to be an escape artist, an incomplete list. And she goes from step 1 to step 10. And then there's just like little things like this.
Yeah.
Or there's some pictures to kind of think about, some pieces of poetry, some of her writing about like the, kind of just processing what this is and how you had to go through it. And it was beautiful piece of art.
Yeah.
And I listened. So part of that book study is that there's a particular, there's a podcast, a long podcast that you can listen to, that you have access to. And so I was listening to that. And for her, they talk about this book between her and the interviewer was talking about it like an artifact, like one of those things that you just kind of carry around with you that continues to kind of be that like touchstone, which I kind of loved. And I think we don't have those as much, and particularly not in like language.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really loved that. And so it's a good place to start. If you haven't read Rest is Resistance, I highly recommend that one as well. That's like her kind of narrative about why she does what she's doing.
Yeah.
But it is just, and she uses, with the escape artist, it's the gentleman who shipped himself out of slavery to Philadelphia from Virginia.
Yep.
He put himself in a box.
In a box.
And I can't think of his name right now.
Yep. I can't think of his name, but I've heard this story. Yeah.
And like, so that's kind of the impetus and the metaphor for that. Sorry, I feel like there was like a big picture of it, and now I can't find it. But
it's always like this.
It's always like that, right? It's kind of that metaphor of escape artist, and using that as kind of that way of understanding how do we break and divest and like stop doing and living into the culture that we've inherited.
That we've inherited, and that we've been living into for some time, right? So it's not even just about like getting out of it, but it's about like recognizing how much we're in it, so that we can then actually like do something about it, right? Because you have to see it first. Yeah.
So there is like a spirituality to that as well. But the other one, I just wanted to put out there for people who maybe are looking for something to give them language for a time such as this.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to, and honestly, even if it's not this time, I think this is a book that's good for everybody who has ever experienced or is experiencing grief, and suffering. And it's Joyce Rupp, who I have loved, and I think I've talked about her before, but called Your Sorrow is My Sorrow. And it's a devotional sort of thing. But she just offers such great language. It's about the 7 sorrows of Mary and how we can look and experience those, whether you, as a Christian,
you don't have to be a Christian, to recognize
Joyce
the sorrows
Rupp is
of another
human. Joyce Rupp is very open. Like that is not at all it, but like using these moments in life, and it's hope and strength in times of suffering. And so it has been a really good touchstone for myself and giving me language and prayers in this particular case. I use them as prayers. She writes everything as poetry, but as a way to like ground in the midst of like some horror.
Chaos and and negativity, and it's
and
pray you live in
suffers.
interesting times, except for like, do we want to pray that we live in interesting times when we're in the interesting times? It never feels like you want it,
it sucks. But everybody experiences suffering, and everybody experiences grief, and everybody experiences the hurt that the world inflicts on each other. And like, I think Joyce Rupp does a good job of just like that's just the presupposition. Like, you won't get out of it unscathed. None of us do. And so how do we my spiritual director uses this word and I love it, but how do we metabolize all of that emotional how do we metabolize that emotional those emotional experiences so that they don't come out in really toxic and hurtful ways, right? And then my last one, I am just going to say this because Hattie did not
Oh, no. Okay. First off, I didn't read it, so I can't say if I liked it or not.
That's true. You didn't read it. Nope. But you won't like it. Don't read it.
Because you'll read it. And that's why I just was like, you know what? We switched books. I'm just going to set this in my go to Hannah pile. And
So Chain Gang All Stars was the book we chose for February's for our book club and cocktails book. And then we realized halfway through the month, we talked about it at our January book club, and then like it got more real that like, this is a very heavy book. Like literally Stephen King, there's his little thing on the front. It goes, this book is so good, brutal subject matter, beautiful writing. This one is from the heart. It is brutal, but it is, if you are a person who can read really speculative fiction that is like really taking what we're currently doing to the nth degree, and that's what's happening in this, is he is taking the prison industrial complex to the horror idea of the prisoners are basically becoming modern day gladiators to the death. And for entertainment purposes, right? Like in entertainment purposes in a very different way, right? Like into your living room kind of entertainment purposes. But and you also learn a lot about the prison industrial complex because he has a lot of footnotes about our prison industrial complex and like how this it is speculative fiction, but it is so it's like that near future that's like so possible. And it makes a lot of sense. But I'm almost done. I'm like that.
You're so
I got that
close,
much left. I'm actually having a hard time finishing it because I don't want to finish it.
Like I don't actually want to still be reading it. Yeah.
I want to keep reading it and I'm a little worried about what's going to happen. And so, and I know what I want to happen.
Yeah.
I know what probably will happen, and I know what I really hope he doesn't do. Right?
No.
Like, you know what I mean?
I do. It's like,
But I am also a person, I think you probably all figured this out now. I just prefer everybody to die. Like, that's always
very true. Yeah. Well, and
so
in a book
we
like
will
that, it feels like that might be the right ending, though, as well. So,
yeah. So I really like it. I don't watch a lot of shows or movies that are kind of deal with this kind of topic or really graphic violence or anything like that because I just can't.
It's just
but like, I can read it I can read it in a book and it's just like, okay, that's fine.
You can do that, yeah.
I can set it down and it not affect me as much, but I really liked it. So I do
want to say I have always heard that this is the most amazing book. Like what happened with our book club is it just like we kind of came off a kind of heavy book that we read in January, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna get like a nice sort of easy fiction book for February," and then it was like, "Oh." No, that's not what this is at all. And so then like we got a little further along, we were starting to get a little feedback. And it just became kind of clear that like, okay, this group of people is not interested in this kind of fiction book right here, right now, in this moment.
And we're going to some more. We're going to read The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates next month.
We can't nix that one at all. Like that's got to be on there. So
So we nixed some fiction, but we shifted that one now. But I just wanted to say I'm really liking it, and it's very good.
And that doesn't surprise me at all because I really, quite honestly, have only heard like that it's the most amazing book ever. It's just the content's really heavy.
It
is. It was just more than what our book club and like dystopian stuff is like just not my genre at all ever.
And then it's like you've read some of the best dystopian fiction in the world, and you're just like, whatever. And like, so it's kind of the same thing as like with me and historical fiction. I'm just like, I read some of the best historical fiction ever written, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It's just not our thing. Yep. And I think that is like so important to remember.
Yeah. It is.
And it really is not. And I was saying earlier that I love people who play with form, and he's doing that again in this book.
You do love that.
I do love people who play with form. Like the movie Traffic or what's it called? Love Actually, like in those movies where there's like all these different characters, but they kind of like all are connected in these interesting ways. This is kind of like that in writing, except it's so much better done. And the whole time you're still going chronologically. Like there's no flashbacks. There's no like there's maybe 2 chapters so far that have been maybe like not in the timeline. Like it is, that part's been really interesting, right? And like sometimes it took me till the end of the chapter to realize like how it was. I was
where
that's connected. Yeah. Right. Like you're reading it, and so that has been really. I do love people who play with form. Yeah. I do love it. So. It just
but you're just a literature person. Like you've always been kind of like a literature person.
Yeah. I mean, I can't do it all the time, but yeah, I do. Yeah. I like literary fiction, and I like literary speculative fiction. Yeah. Is probably my favorite. Yeah. Right now,
I would say so. I mean, if I had to pick your thing, I would definitely say like the speculative fiction. You love like kind of this dystopian thing, but like definitely in that.
But I like it done well.
Well, yeah. I mean. There's so much trash out there. We're not going to get started on the trash that I read.
I have such a hard time saying I like dystopian fiction because it's like there's so much bad dystopian fiction out there in the world. Like, well, I mean, and that's like what Hunger Games is, and like I'm like,
right, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you don't want to like dump yourself into that.
Not what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I'm talking about like, and I think that's partially why people have started using like speculative fiction. It's dystopian, but because that's the speculation of like our future based on our current experience,
like,
right?
Where we're headed, it feels like right now. Yeah.
That is dystopian, but like it is like using what our current circumstances are to kind of like process that out. I love a good thought experiment. I mean,
that's exactly. It's like taking the now and then projecting, know, speculating about what now can lead to later.
Yeah, either good or bad, right? Like because I haven't said her name, so I'm pretty sure Adrienne
Marie Brown. Here we go.
I don't know that she is the one who said it. I feel like she quoted somebody else, but I know I read it, and she did a book of Octavia Butler, inspired by Octavia Butler, all these little short stories of speculative fiction. But they talk about like speculative fiction is resistance because it is imagining a new, different future.
Yeah.
Like and so we think about so many times speculative fiction is really negative, and it can be, and like that's also a possible future, but like we have to be able to imagine a different way of being together, like and living together. And if we can't do that collectively, like another one of the things that she has said, and I think it was from somebody else too, but was that we're not in a battle of values, we're in a battle of imagination. Like what we can even imagine humanity
future to look like.
So I kind of love both of those. Science fiction as like resistance, and science fiction as like the place of or speculative fiction as the place of imagination. So anyway, and I can't talk about books and not talk about Adrienne Marie Brown.
No, you cannot. Obviously. No, you cannot.
It's against
my little soapbox for just like 1 minute, and then we're gonna be done because it's already 8:35.
Okay.
So this soapbox Hannah has heard so many times, and I've probably said it on this forum more than once. So I just finished a nonfiction book called Galileo's Daughter.
Oh, God, here it goes. Yeah,
she knows exactly.
You have said one. I know exactly where you're going now.
I don't even have to say my rant because this happens so often, which is also part of the problem.
Yeah.
So I was telling George about it as I was listening to this one, and I was telling George about it, and I'm like, George, I was like 1 hour in. I'm like, okay, so far it's only been about Galileo, but I'm like, it's only an hour in, so I'm gonna
stick with it.
Stick with it. So I just finished it the other day, and George asked me how it was. I was like, well, I would say Galileo's Daughter, which was the name of the book, was in the book about 15% of the time. Maybe. It was a really awesome book about Galileo. It was a great biography of Galileo, right? Yeah. And like some of the information came from letters that his daughter wrote to him.
Yeah.
But that's what this book was.
Yeah.
Why would you market it and sell it?
Well, do you want to know why? I mean, it's a marketing scheme. I've been thinking about this because you continue to say that, because this continues to be a critique. But I think it's a marketing scheme. It is a marketing scheme because most buyers of books are women. And so if you use women and say this is about women, then, then this is an interesting, but then it's not actually about the female. It's not about the women, right? No. I'm actually pretty sure that probably is a publishing marketing ploy to say, like, that's what's interesting about this. Otherwise, it's just a biography about Galileo. Ain't nobody going to pick that up.
I know. Then I think you're exactly right, because then it's just another biography of Galileo. And why would anybody pick that one up when there's like 150 other ones out there that have already been written?
Yep. And I do believe women are the largest, at least in American publishing. Yeah. Women are the largest block of purchasers. I don't know if that's true of nonfiction, but
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Hannah knew I was going to go with that. I just want to say it again.
So now I'm worried about that book I sent you yesterday, if that one's going to be the Rome one.
Oh, yeah.
But
I don't know. I'll look.
It didn't look
And
like
sometimes
it.
I do like look at the reviews and stuff first. Like this one I didn't. I just like found it. I was like, oh, Galileo's job. That sounds really interesting. They got like letters that she wrote. Like this will be Why do I sometimes I wonder why I even bother.
Well,
It's like hitting your damn head against the wall. It's like how many times do I have to do this
yeah,
before I realize that it's never
yeah,
going to be about her.
yeah.
No matter what. It's never going to be about her.
Never gonna be about her. Yeah. So
Anyway. I'm off.
oh
I'll be done with my soapbox now.
no, but I think it's important that we keep beating that particular soapbox though, because it is really. It's also good to be informed and realistic about like what you're picking up, right? Like, and that you realize that what that was. Was it written by a woman? I'm curious.
I do not think this one was. I can't remember who the author was because it was on my. It was I was listening to it, so I didn't have like the the book.
Yeah.
But I don't. I feel like I would have remembered if it was a woman, so I'm defaulting to. I'm guessing it was a man.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So okay. So we don't have a date yet for next month scheduled, but I do think, I mean, with it being Lent, Hattie, I do think we probably are just going to do one in March.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you.
It's kind of like the intense time for you. It's like a busy time for the preachers.
Yeah. I use a lot of creative energy for work right now. Yeah. So, but we will find a date and we will read Secret Garden before said date, and then we will talk about the Secret Garden. We haven't read a book together outside of book club right now, so that'll be good. Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
I love it.
And I have a really pretty copy. I had that really pretty copy.
You got me a pretty copy. Or I have a pretty copy. I think you gave it to me, or I bought it when I was with you.
Yeah, I probably gave it to you. I buy whenever I see one that I think you'll like. I always buy them for you too.
You probably.
We love a good. Yeah. Oh, the other thing I just want to say. Sorry, this is everybody can stop listening right now. This is more of like a sister thing, but it is about books.
Info to me.
But yesterday I was at a bookstore in Alexandria, Minnesota, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was a great little bookstore downtown. But I picked up, it's The Hobbit in graphic novel form for the boys. They are loving it. They also had To Kill a Mockingbird in graphic novel form.
In graphic novel, good.
Yes. And so Zeke is reading that, and I told him I looked through the pictures and I'm pretty sure it's okay, but we already had like 3 conversations last night about it, and then it was like, okay, you got to put that one away now.
Like we're just aside for a hot minute. It's okay. We'll come back to it. Yeah.
But so I'm kind of loving this, and I bought our nephews classic graphic novels, Watership Down, and then I did The Parable of the Sower.
Oh, nice.
For them for Christmas this year.
I feel like I need those too because I could not get into that weird rabbit one at all.
Oh, Watership Down?
Yeah. Like I tried like 5 times and I could just not
ever. It is like social commentary. Like it is speculative fiction basically, but just with rabbits instead of.
I just feel like maybe the graphic novel version would like be better for me than like.
It was really pretty. Yeah. Like it was huge. It was a really fat one, but
what it was with
but I kind of like loving this because it just makes it. Yeah, it just makes those classics so accessible.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great, Han.
And then I think and I know as a kid, like if I could read something, like if it really stuck with you, if you liked it, then you'd read the fuller novel at some point when so I'm excited about that for the boys. Yeah. So I'm glad that whoever has decided that that's a smart thing to do.
That's a smart thing to do.
I'm with them. I'm with them. Thank you. But yeah, the Hobbit one, I was like, if they had multiple copies, I would have gotten one for you and one for Dad.
I know.
Because the art is really cool. It's like the old school art.
I was gonna ask
it's an old school.
Does it look like the old movie? Like the one? Oh.
Yeah, it's closer to that. It's like that kind of artwork. Yeah. Or like the original kind of hobbity, like the original. Because there was with the Lord of the Rings, they were like people who did illustrated novel art, like illustrations, like for years and years, long before the movies ever came out.
Right.
There are like particular artists that are really known for those books. And I think that might be true for The Hobbit, too. Mm-hmm. And I know it was originally illustrated. I think there was, like, in the original print, I think there were, like, the pages, like, not like all of it. Like,
yeah, I know that I have a lot of A Christmas Carol with those, like, I don't know if they were original, but they came out, like, real early in the early editions, the early printed editions, where there was, like, just, like, one picture sort of, like, per chapter. And a lot of my editions of that have that.
But anyway, either way, the art is very reminiscent of all of that, right? It's not like modern.
It's not
modernized. No, thank
We
God.
don't. No modern crap.
So terrible.
We're the worst.
We're the worst. Anyway, okay, we have to be done. We
Yes.
could talk about this. Okay, so we will let everyone know about next month.
Yep.
We are going to be reading Secret Garden.
Secret Garden.
And yeah,
Yay.
let us know if you have any questions, any recommendations, anything that we should be reading. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Have a good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.